Okay, so you've completed the lecture on Chapter 1 and the homework on Chapter 1, and now you're reviewing the solutions for Chapter 1. Um, we're going to cover assignments 1, 5, 1, 6, and 110. These solution lectures are pretty quick. If you have any questions about the homework once you've gone over the solutions, please email me or call me, and I should be able to walk you through what you don't understand. Hopefully, I'll cover everything that needs to be covered on all of the homework. And of course, I don't expect you to know everything when you're doing the homework. On homework, you get graded on attempt and not correctness. My goal with the homework is for you to realize what you don't know and then learn what you know when we go over the solutions. And my expectation is that you're going to redo the homework once we've gone over solutions and practice it so that you're ready for a test. If you think you need more help as far as additional homework style problems, I can always go ahead and put together a study guide if I haven't done so for the module or the course. And that way we can review more of these problems before the test. Okay, so on 1.5, this is homework 1.5, and what I actually have is I have the question and the answer. An entry to increase the accumulated depreciation account is recorded with the credit entry. That's because depreciation is a contra asset account. Assets, of course, have a normal debit balance, but because this is a contra asset account, it's going to have a normal credit balance. Number 2, food inventory is reduced on the books to its market value when it's lower than cost due to the conservative principle. We talked about accounting being conservative, and when our assets decrease in value, we have the opportunity to write them down on our balance sheet. Number 3, which of the following items is not recorded at the end of the accounting period, and that's going to be the recognition of expired insurance coverage. That's not going to actually be recorded per se. What's going to happen is that we're going to go ahead and expense our insurance, and it's going to reduce our prepaid insurance, but we don't actually recognize the expiration of it. 4, the branch of accounting involved with reviewing and evaluating documents is auditing. If you noticed on the lectures, I really didn't cover the different branches of accounting, so this is a homework problem, but it's not going to be a test problem. Which of the following forms of business formats has a limited number of owners? And that's going to be B, an S corporation. As I told you in the lecture, the S corporations have a limited number. One of the corporate structures has a limited number of members, and that's the S corporation. And then number 6, the Triple Ranch purchased a 3-year insurance policy. I think I have this on the next slide. I do. The Triple Ranch purchased a 3-year insurance policy on June 1st, 2000 X1. If you're not familiar with those X1s, what happens is when the author writes a textbook, they put an X in there so that it's timeless. So we'll use 2011 for that. But after 2011, or 2021, we could use the X1 for 2021. So on June 1st of 2011, we'll call it, we bought a $36,000 3-year insurance policy. And it covered us from July 1st of that year through June 30th, 3 years later of 2014. And then the amount of prepaid insurance that should be shown on the ranch's balance sheet as a current asset as of December 31st is E30,000. And what happens is at the year end, we do a journal entry to debit insurance expense of $6,000 and credit prepaid insurance of $6,000. Like I told you before, I don't expect you to remember this per se from accounting, especially the journal entry. But once I show you the answer, it should make sense to you and kind of jog your memory. I did put the journal entry on there just so you could see how I came about the answer of $30,000. So 36,000 minus 6,000 is 30,000. Number 7, the Zebra Inn sold 10,000 shares of its common stock for $20 per share. This common stock has a par value of $1 per share, which of the following statements is false. If you look down, what I did is, well, it doesn't look great. It looked great when I did it, but we're going to have 3 lines on common stock. The first line is going to tell us how many shares. I should say we have 3 lines on the balance sheet. So we have the first line is going to tell us that how many shares we sold. So it's going to tell us that we have 10,000 shares available for sale. We could have had 100,000 shares available for sale and only sold 10,000 of them. And they had a $1 par value. So that $10,000 tells us that we sold 10,000 shares because of the $1 par value. But we sold them for more than the par value, the face value, which was $20 per share. So we actually go ahead and take the $20 times 10,000, we get the 200,000, and the difference is the paid-in capital in excess of par of $190,000. So the common stock account didn't increase by 200,000; it actually increased by 10,000, but the total increased by $200,000. Again, the whole reason for this question and my explanation on this is so that you can remember how we put common stock on the balance sheet, that we go ahead and we have 3 accounts. We have the first one that tells us how many shares we sold, or it doesn't tell us, it tells the readers. The second one is just to add up to the final number of the total, and the total tells us how much we sold them for. So we know that they sold for $20 times 10,000 is 200,000, and that we sold all 10,000 shares, and we have that with the $10,000. Okay, 1.6. A restaurant records accrued wages at the end of a physical period because of the matching principle. Again, this is the accounting principles, and we want to match our revenues and expenses when they happen, and not when we receive funds or spend funds. So we haven't paid these people yet, but we're actually going to go ahead and do an adjusting entry so that our income statement shows up correctly for the period. Number 2, a hotel reduces its inventory values to reflect the market value of its food stocks, which are lower than its original cost, and that's because of the conservative principle. We write down the value of our assets as they decrease because we're conservative. So if we were to just write them down at the purchase price, that's the cost principle. A motel does not reduce the value of its glassware to liquidation value because of the materiality principle. That's what I say. The text states that it's the continuity of business unit. One thing I'll assure you of all the way through this course is I don't test you in gray areas. I test you in just knowing common information on the financial statements. So you wouldn't see a question like this that's gray on the test. These questions are from the textbook, and because I assigned 1.6 and most of them are very good questions for the test, I just included it in there. The cost of 10 replacement waste baskets is expensed rather than recorded as equipment due to the materiality principle. We discussed bag-in-the-box and kegs in the lecture, and this is the same thing. It's going to cost us more money to depreciate those waste baskets over their lifetime than it would be for us just to expense them. And again, that's a judgment call, and I apologize for my screen doing that. The method of depreciation used is reflected in the financial report because of the full disclosure principle. If you remember, we disclose all of our methods of accounting, so the depreciation and the inventory methods and things like that. And of course, those are stated in the form of footnotes. 6, when one method of inventory valuation is used at the end of 2015 or 2005 rather, and another is used at the end of 2006, it violates the consistency principle. If you remember, consistency says that once we choose an accounting procedure, we're going to stick with it through the life of that asset. Number 7, the cost of stakes taken home by the owner for personal use is recorded as a withdrawal because of the business entity principle. Business entity states that the companies are their own entity separate from the ownership, and the business entity principle is the one that states that we need to do this. 8, a boat dock is recorded at $22,500, which is the amount we paid rather than the original contract price of $25,000 because of the cost principle. And finally, 110. 110, I can assure you you're going to see on the test, as you'll see a lot of the other questions that you saw in the form of multiple choice. This will actually be a multiple choice question. What I did is I put everything on here, so I'm going to explain it line by line, and if it's confusing, I apologize. One thing I didn't give you is occupancy percentage, and that's rooms sold over rooms available. A couple of things that I think everybody should know when they graduate college. One is how many days are in a month. And I don't use my knuckles on this, and I don't have a poem or anything I memorize. What I do is I know certain months have certain days, and I know almost every other month has 31 days. So if we start out with February as an example, which we know has 28 days, I know that January and March have 31. I know that October has 31 days because that's when Halloween is. So since October has 31 days, I know that November has 30, December has 31, and September has 30. Going back to February and March having 28 and 31, that means that April has 30, May has 31, and I know 2 months together have 31 days, and I just remembered that those are July and August. So that may have been a long way to remember everything, but it makes sense for me, and that's how I got my days in the month. I do total them to make sure that I did it right, that I have 365 days in the year. And then the rooms sold and rooms available were given to you in the text, and I have them here on the spreadsheet. And then this assignment called for us to figure out the occupancy percentage for summer months, off-season, and year. I went ahead and totaled my rooms sold and my rooms available for the year and got that 9,100 for rooms sold and the 14,600 for rooms available. So the first thing I did is I put my year amount down, and I got 62.33%. Then, because summer has less months than the off-season, I went ahead and calculated my summer months by adding up, I believe it's May through August, and I got 4,920 available over 3,905 sold, and my occupancy percentage when I used the rooms sold over rooms available came out to 79.37%. And then what I did is I actually subtracted my summer months from my year to get my off season and my for available and for sold, and then I calculated the percentage using the formula. I will tell you on the test that my question is not clean. I think that it's going to have a week possibly fall between the two, so you're not going to just be able to do clean months. And if you don't add and subtract those extra days from the summer to the off season, you're going to get the wrong answer. So if you didn't know how to calculate this, I'd go ahead and redo it, making sure you got the answers that I have and understand how I got my answers. And again, if you have questions, don't hesitate to contact me. And that's our first video on our homework. I hope I clarified anything you didn't know.